Long before this past weekend, Beth Israel Congregation in Jackson, Mississippi, knew what it meant to be targeted. Nearly 60 years ago, on the night of September 18, 1967, members of the Ku Klux Klan planted a bomb that destroyed much of the rabbi's office and part of the synagogue's library. The building was empty at the time and no one was injured. 2 months later, the same Klansmen bombed Rabbi Perry Nussbaum's home while he was inside with his wife. Miraculously, again, no one was hurt. The synagogue and its rabbi had been targeted because the congregation chose to speak up for civil rights, to partner with black pastors, to minister to incarcerated freedom riders, and to help rebuild black churches that had been bombed or burned by white supremacists. In other words, they were targeted for living out their Jewish values. This past weekend, Beth Israel was once again the target of baseless hatred. A young man espousing anti-Semitic rhetoric set the synagogue on fire, burning offices and the library, and destroying 2 Torah scrolls. Like many of us, I was shocked, but sadly, I was not surprised when I heard the news. I've been lucky to get to know the Beth Israel community well when I worked at Jacob's Camp, a Reformed Jewish summer camp just 45 minutes down the road. Many campers, staff members, and friends of mine grew up in that vibrant community. And my dear friend and classmate, Rabbi Joseph Rosen, served there for 5 years. Our own Rachel Glazer, a member of our education and youth team, formerly served as the director of Beth Israel's religious school and worked at the Institute for Southern Jewish Life, an organization whose offices are housed inside of the synagogue. And we know there are many more personal and deep connections to this community. As American Jews, and I think particularly as Jews of the South, this act of violence has shaken us to our core. We know what it means to be the few among the many. We know the burden of constantly having to represent, to educate, to explain who we are, what we believe, and why we belong, even though we are different. To witness a Southern Jewish community attacked simply for being Jewish is heartbreaking. And yet, the response to this attempt to silence and erase has been defiance, pride, and resilience. Beth Israel has made clear its commitment to rebuild and to continue Jewish life, including returning to worship as soon as possible. This weekend, Beth Israel is not only gathering in regular Shabbat worship, but they are celebrating an adult bat mitzvah. A local church is hosting them so they can still gather, read Torah, pray, and celebrate someone affirming their commitment to Jewish life and values. The religious school has already met, a clear reminder that holiness does not reside in 4 walls, but in the learning, connection, and vitality of a community. Earlier this week, Rachel showed me a powerful image. Torah scrolls carefully unrolled on tables in the social hall of a local church, examined and cleaned, tended with care and reverence. And the Jewish community far beyond Jackson has responded with both compassion and resolve, offering support and help in every way possible. And even more powerfully, perhaps, that response has extended beyond the Jewish community. Churches and institutions across Jackson have shown up with extraordinary generosity, opening their doors for worship, gatherings, and religious school. For years, confirmation students from Parkway Hills United Methodist Church have visited Beth Israel to learn about Judaism and to build relationships with their Jewish neighbors. In the immediate aftermath of the attack, that same community chose to dedicate its monthly community offering to Beth Israel's rebuilding. Doors once opened in curiosity were opened once again in solidarity. Neighbors became friends, and friends became the people who showed up when it mattered most. And as inspiring as this response has been, I want to name something clearly. This is a scary moment. Because what we saw in Jackson is not an isolated incident. It's a part of a broader and deeply troubling rise in anti-Semitic acts and rhetoric across our country, and in fact, the world. Earlier this very week, protesters outside a yeshiva in Queens, New York, chanted, "We support Hamas here." Anti-Semitism is not only a problem of the right, it is not only a problem of the left. The political spectrum is actually not a straight line. It's a horseshoe. And what closes the horseshoe into a circle is anti-Semitism. So the question we must ask ourselves is, what do we do? Tonight, I want to offer two ways of responding. The first, I think, is beautifully embodied by Beth Israel Congregation itself. When someone tries to silence us, we speak louder. When we are told we are less than, or that we should not exist at all, we live our Judaism more boldly. Beth Israel is not hiding. They are not apologizing for who they are or what they stand for. They are loudly and clearly affirming their faith, their heritage, and their sanctity. As Jews, we do not and we cannot allow fear to push our values aside. In January of 2022, when a man entered Beth Israel Synagogue in Colleyville, Texas, Rabbi Charlie Citron Walker noticed he was cold and offered him a cup of tea. Minutes later, that same man pulled out a gun and took the congregation hostage. Thank God everyone emerged safely hours later. And when Rabbi Citron Walker was asked whether he would still have offered that cup of tea, he answered without hesitation, absolutely. In that response, I see a refusal to surrender core Jewish values, a refusal to let terror strip away compassion, hospitality, and care. The second response recognizes that anti-Semitism is not only a hatred unto itself, it is a warning sign, a bellwether for the health of a society. As Rabbi Sharon Brous teaches, when anti-Semitism thrives, racism thrives. When anti-Semitic language becomes normalized, no one is safe. When violence against Jews is tolerated, violence against other marginalized communities soon follow. Anti-Semitism endangers not only in Jews, it endangers democracy itself. The rise of anti-Semitism tells us something important. Our society is not well. And so our second way of responding has to be a response of justice, a recommitment to the work of building a more just, equitable, and humane world, the very work we have heard about from our lay leaders tonight. And let me be clear. Combating anti-Semitism is itself social justice work. For too long, we have framed justice work as something we do only for others. But when we are being targeted, minimized, harassed, and threatened, we have every right and every obligation to stand up for ourselves. And at the same time, we recognize that this struggle is part of something larger. The fight for a society where hatred does not get to decide who belongs and who doesn't. A fight that we cannot win if we work alone. The response we're seeing in Jackson reminds us of something we know deep in our bones. We are stronger together. When we set aside our differences to work for what is right, when we show up for others in moments of need, and when others, in turn, show up for us. Jewish tradition has never promised that the path to safety or wholeness would be easy, or that we would walk it alone. In this week's Torah portion, Moses returns from his encounter with God to tell the Israelites that freedom is coming, and they cannot hear it. They do not believe him, and they dismiss him. They are not ready. And the road to redemption is long, marked by struggle and setbacks and loss. But that does not mean it is not worth the journey, or that life in bondage would have been preferable. We often read the following poem just before we recite the words of Mi Chamocha, the song of freedom sung with joy from the far side of suffering. Standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot, that wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt, that there is a better place, a promised land, that the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness, that there is no way to get from here to there except by joining hands, marching together. Our tradition is clear that liberation was not achieved by individuals slipping away quietly, but by a people moving forward collectively, vulnerable, imperfect, sometimes frightened, but bound to one another in shared responsibility and shared hope. This is what bridge building looks like. This is what justice looks like. This is what resilience looks like. We do this work not because it is easy and not because we are unafraid, but because we refuse to let hatred decide who belongs. We refuse to let terror define the limits of our compassion, and we refuse to walk this road alone. The only way forward is together, and so we keep marching, arm in arm, rooted in our values, supported by our partners, and committed again and again to be fully, unapologetically ourselves. Shabbat Shalom.